Hello, hello. Great to see everybody. Um, we're here to talk about a new concept called shadow data. So you got your data in the cloud, uh, and what we're finding with our customers is there is lots of data in the cloud that they didn't know was there, right? You know the main production data store. Yep, I got that well protected. I know it's there, but it's the copies, it's the backups, it's the unintended, et cetera, that are out there that are typically unprotected, unmonitored, and at risk, right? So let's talk a little bit about why that phenomena comes in, what it is, what we've seen out there, and how to protect yourself. So of course, at this conference, I don't even have to do this. Like, cloud's been going on for a while, but it is still exploding. And COVID-19 even accelerated even faster, right? So more cloud transformation going on. But the piece that you and multi-cloud, right? So more cloud transformation and multi-cloud. That was way different over the last so many years that I've been doing this business. It is, used to be we will transfer everything to one, and now almost every customer we have has a multi-cloud strategy. Not surprising. But the one piece you may not be aware of is there's this other big phenomenon going on called data democratization, right? So how much data can I collect, getting new insights from my customers for our environment, making better decisions. And in fact, up to 60% of global GDP will be digitized by this year. And I've seen other estimates that say about half to 65% of that data is now in the cloud. So this is only increasing. And so, close to 3/4 currently plan to use cloud for analytics, BI, and data science. So it's, we're at 60 to 65%, growing to 75%, very fast. So those two major market trends, cloud transformation, data democratization, has kind of put data security teams behind the 8 ball and a little bit created this gap between this wonderful things going on for the business, and we don't want to slow that down, but yet we still need to not have undue risk with our data in the cloud. And the reality is it's gotten much more complicated, right? This is just the AWS view of the world, but whether we're talking databases, data pipelines, applications, data warehouses, whether they're SaaS, whether they're managed data stores, whether they're hosted data stores, there's way more options than there ever was in the on-premises world that the data security teams are just overwhelmed, right? And so that sprawl of cloud data technologies is another reason why this is much more complicated than in the old on-premises world before. There was many fewer options, and so you could get your hands around it as a security professional. So what are the things that have changed? First off, this proliferation of data. So again, this main data store, copied, backed up, a sample and dev environment, and all those going on, that data has its own life cycle, and it starts to spread and proliferate across that. That is happening, and obviously changes rapidly. The cloud environment is made for devs to be able to spin up, spin down, copy, easy at a click of a button, and that environment changes really, really, really fast. And the data security teams are used to be able to go around, manually ask questions, and get the answers they need from developers. Well, now it's just changing on daily, weekly basis, and once you have your answer, it's immediately outdated a day later or a week later. This data is used freely, so they can create, replicate, and share data. That the power, I'll tell a little story a little bit later, but the developers have the power. And again, that's a good thing for business. We do not want to stop that from happening, but it creates situations that need to be protected. It's just different than the on-premises world. And easy to expose, right? So it used to be, when it's all in my data center, I can have a single choke point, I know how to protect it. Now it's out there, needing to be out there, easy to share, and there's the perimeter not there anymore, right? Typical cloud problem. So these are new challenges for the data security teams. And data security teams used to be gatekeepers. And what we need to do is change ourselves. I've been doing security for a long time, and you're looking for that opportunity, like, how can I be an enabler for the business and not be a naysayer and a no-sayer? this is our opportunity as security professionals to be gate openers instead of gatekeepers. So how can I allow this democratization of data, but do it in a safe manner? I'll tell you, a story about how this changed is, in the old days, when a developer wanted to spin up a new application, they would have to call a design review. Remember those design review days? And you have to get somebody to bring you a server. And then if you're going to store data, you got to get a DBA to show up to the design review. Well, security would hear about the design reviews, get to show up to the design review and say, hey, Mr. Developer, what do you plan on putting into that database? Oh, I'm going to put credit cards in there. Oh, well, here's your policy if you're going to put credit cards in that database, et cetera. Well, those design reviews don't happen anymore, because if a developer wants to spin up a new data store, click of a button, boom, off and running. And so security is unawares, right, of what's happening with this data out there. And so you need to put guardrails and have automated systems. You can't do it manually. You need to have automated systems to watch what's going on and be able to alert when there's undue risk. And that way you can allow the business to continue to move fast, but yet have proper controls in place for those environments. So what are the challenges that come up? First, and the number one was, every CISO I talk to says he or she has no idea where their data is in the cloud, where their sensitive data in the cloud. They know they have an inaccurate view of where their data is in the cloud. I have not run up, I've probably talked to 250 plus over the last year and a half once I kind of came to Laminar, and not a single one of them feels, oh yeah, I got a handle on where my data is in the cloud. They all know they have a problem with inventory. So how do I discover where that sensitive data is? And they know it's the around shadow data, it's the known unknown. I know I've got data I don't know about. I just don't know how much I have, right? And that's the thing that really freaks CISOs out. So they don't know where all their data is. They can't have a way of verifying those data security policies except manually. Go up, hey, Mr. Developer, where's your data? Okay, let's look at it together. Are you following this policy? Okay, you have this kind of data in. But again, that is out of date days after you had that conversation, and it just can't happen manually. Some companies are trying it, and it's hundreds of hours of effort. They're certainly not monitoring all data accesses. And so what we find in the cloud, it's expensive to turn logging on, right? And if you don't know where your sensitive data is, then I need to turn logging on for everything. But nobody does that because it costs too much. So because I don't know where it is, I turn logging on nothing. And that's a problem, because now you're not actually looking at all those data accesses, looking for leaks, being able to look for anomalies, et cetera. And then assess the data at risk. So we actually have customers that see compromises and then, oh crap, what's inside? And they're using us not only for the inventory, but actually saying, I found this bad thing. You know, what was inside there that could potentially be at risk. And so being able to have that view. So those are went backwards the wrong way. Those are the challenges that come with moving this data democratization to the cloud. So let me tell you some real life customer examples that we found in our customer base of shadow data. The main thing, of course, is in an Amazon environment, it's the Amazon S3 buckets, these buckets of data. And I'll give you two examples of where a focus on infrastructure security doesn't solve the problem, right? So in one customer, there's an S3 bucket that is supposed to be publicly exposed, right? So it was hosting a website data, et cetera, supposed to be publicly exposed. And so according to your infrastructure security, you go, oh, publicly exposed, but then, yep, nope, that's supposed to be check off, don't pay attention to that anymore. Well, we found a good chunk of an LDAP database that was sitting inside that publicly exposed S3 bucket. Of course, the infrastructure security all looked fine. Well, there was a migration project that was going on with Active Directory, and some developer decided, I'm going to take this backup, and I need to put it somewhere temporarily, and I don't know why they chose this S3 bucket, but they did. And it was publicly exposed to the outside world for a decent period of time. Now, I think they were fortunate. They didn't get hacked, but when they found it, when when we found it, they were certainly glad that we found it. So that's another example to focus on data-centric security, being able to understand where your data is, as opposed to infrastructure-centric. The corollary is also true that we have found S3 buckets that are not publicly exposed, but the sensitive data inside them is. So just because I have access to the infrastructure doesn't mean I have access to the data. There's two different access control lists. And so being able to understand that is important. Again, that would have shown up on your infrastructure security as, fine, this is not publicly exposed, but when you look at the data element layer, that data was exposed. One of the common things, again, with infrastructure security is having unlisted embedded data, have a Postgres on your EC2. That looks like a compute instance to an infrastructure security. Great, there's no data inside there. Oh, nope. Yep, in fact, there is data inside there because you've put a database inside there. We see nested data stores with Parquet files, so it's, it really is data inside there, even though it looks like it's not. Unmanaged backups, certainly that happens, where a backed up piece of data or orphaned backup, so maybe the application went away, but you were afraid to delete the data, so you still got that data store out there. Abandoned databases, certainly you have data that's getting into Snowflake or other analytics pipelines that you may not be aware of. Found sensitive data in log files. So again, this is not a traditional data store, but email addresses were being used in the file name of your log file when they found error logs. And of course, obviously the classic copy and test environment, right? So a developer makes a copy and test environment, runs a test, it's only supposed to be there for 2 weeks, but forgets to go back and delete that. Very, very common. That developer leaves and that data is just sitting out there forever. Super common. And then lots of developer secrets we see because they're putting them around so it's easy to access, but clearly that is not supposed to be available there. So those are all real life examples. And when we surveyed the market, 82% were extremely concerned or very concerned of security professionals were extremely concerned or very concerned about shadow data. So they all know they have it. Again, it's the known unknown. They know they have it, but they don't know how much or where it is. So can data security teams close the gap? That's the question. This is a new environment, and we've got the same kinds of controls, but you've got to put cloud native controls in place for cloud problems. And so what we find out there is that if you look down enterprise data security, there's lots. Endpoint DLP, network DLP, email DLP, CASBs that might look at SaaS, SaaS data, file scanning, database scanning, lots of good data security technologies in the enterprise world. In the cloud world, up top here, there's good infrastructure security, and we have to have infrastructure security. If you're looking at CSPM, CWPPs, CNAP, now we can throw a lot more acronyms out there. I'm going to give you a few more new ones that are coming up. But what there isn't much or anything out there is for data security in the cloud. So data security for everything you build and run in the cloud. So your custom applications in your IaaS and PaaS environments. That's what we're here to talk about today. There really isn't much there. There hasn't been solutions focused on that. So it really starts with cloud data catalog, making sure I can see everything inside your cloud environment. And so you want a cloud native solution that utilizes the APIs of the cloud provider to see all these instances spinning up and spinning down. So I can see everything in that cloud account, and I don't have to know and point it right to certain data stores. It sees everything going up, and you can have a complete 100% cloud data catalog for your cloud accounts. Then it's data security posture management. So I've been working with Gartner since November, trying to talk to them about what we're doing, et cetera. They finally came out with their first, it's the DLP market guide that just came out this week that talks about data security posture management. It's going to be in the hype cycle coming up. So you'll start to hear more about data security posture management. But it's basically saying, I've got cloud security posture management that's looking at the infrastructure, right? But I also need to look at the security posture of the data element. And so they are both important and need to be done to really assess your risk. So that's the whole idea. If I'm putting credit cards in there, there's a policy written down somewhere that the developers try to have access to that says, here's what you need to do. It needs to be encrypted, it might need to be masked, here's the retention period. All those policies are different than your infrastructure policies. So you got to look at that data security posture management. Then data access control. Again, your access to the data is different than your access list to the infrastructure. And so, in fact, in the AWS world, it's a very complex matrix that went over years of access control lists and changing technologies, but I can still go back and use this one from 10 years ago, even though this new one exists. And so when you check to see who has access and is it exposed, you got to look a very complex matrix of all the ways somebody can get access to those data elements. And then lastly, data detection and response. So I got to have the preventative aspects. First, it all starts with cataloging your data, and then posture management and access controls are really about the preventive controls. And then, of course, even if those preventive controls don't work, I still need an active monitoring data detection and response. This is your kind of your DLP piece, et cetera, right? I still need that active monitoring of those environments to look for anomalies. So these are the 4 emerging categories in cloud data security. And so the best methodology comes down to 4 steps that kind of follows those categories a bit. But first, it all starts with discovery. And you want to be able to discover those data assets and all those data elements. I want to discover, classify, and catalog all the data across your multi-cloud environment and all those different technologies I showed you with earlier, right? It's a very complex problem, but all those different technologies, it's not just your EC2s. It's not just your buckets, et cetera. It is across all those. This is where all your data is. And you want to do it agentlessly, right? So you make sure you see everything. If you're tied into the cloud provider APIs, you can see everything. And you want to do it asynchronously because you do not want to be scanning all that data and slowing down the production environment. I want to make a copy or a snapshot, be able to scan that in that environment. And importantly, you also don't want to take the data out, right? Last thing you want to do is, oh, here's your data. Let me go take it over here into this other data store, make the problem worse, and scan it in that environment, become a data processor, et cetera. So the discovery is important, and then it all starts with that, to really have a clean view. You can't protect what you can't see. What went on there? All right. I have almost 3 minutes left, and my slides went away. Did you guys change something back there? That is interesting. Hold on a sec. The slides went away? Hello. So I know these off the top of my head. So it starts with discovery, find everything. Then you got to prioritize the things you find, right? So thank you. So you got to prioritize the risks. So talking to lots of CISOs, it's like you want to don't give me 400 more alerts. I need more alerts like I need a hole in the head, right? And so we've got trying to connect to your TV. You want to do this? I'll talk. So it starts to, you want to prioritize all those issues you find. And so you want to prioritize based on the sensitivity of the data. You want to prioritize based on the volume of data. I want to make sure the first things I do is very sensitive, crap loads of volume of data, right? Based on the security posture, the worse the posture, I want to pay attention to that first. And then based on the exposure. Who has exposure to it? How big could this problem be? And so we take those, we put it into a risk model, and you want to prioritize then your issues so that I take care of the biggest ones first. So discover, prioritize, secure. The next part is about remediation. And this is a big issue. Again, these are all learnings from our customers, and this methodology over time is great. You tell me I have this issue. You tell me what priority it is. I don't know who to go talk to. We've got hundreds, if not thousands, of developers, and I don't know which one has responsibility for this data store, and I can't just delete it without talking to somebody. And so we try to give you the context of owner, to help you speak the developer's language, to tell you the kind of data asset it's in, and et cetera, so that you can basically create a ticket and goes to the right person and has all the context that they need to say, I understand this issue, I understand which asset it's in, I understand the data that there's found, et cetera. So you have all the context, and we try to even give remediation advice, here's your choices. You can quarantine it, you can delete it, you can mask it, all these choices, and give you even the cloud-specific commands for that remediation. So you try to make that as simple as possible to ease this communication between security and the developers or the data scientists, so that they're clearly communicating with each other, because that can be very difficult too. All right, so discover, prioritize, secure. Those are just, and again, when we talk about the types of policies, it's data policies. Is it encrypted? What's the retention period? What's the data access config look like, et cetera? Those are different policies than the infrastructure policies. And last thing, you want to monitor. And again, find those crown jewels, and you want to turn logging on and continuously monitor those crown jewels without needing to. All infrastructure is not the same, right? I want to monitor those crown jewels and look for anomalies in all those data accesses. Lastly, it's about bringing these teams together. The data management team wants to make sure that they understand and efficiently know where the data assets are. The data security, the architects and product security are creating these data security policies, and of course they want to make sure their policies are being followed. The SecOps team, like I said, we have customers that say, oh, this piece of infrastructure was compromised. What data was inside there? So it helps with forensics. And then clearly with the developers and DevOps teams, when you find these issues, make sure to get it into Jira, et cetera, be able to resolve these. And so these helps facilitation with all these teams involved. All right. Perfect timing, I guess, even with my hiccups. So to learn more, visit us at laminarsecurity.com. We will be in the Startup Pavilion. Where is it? There. Thank you. Tomorrow. So come by and see us. And thank you all very much for your time.